What impact will U.S. and Israeli airstrikes have on Iran and its energy infrastructure? I'm Borzu Dergahi, and this is a brief edition of the Badlands podcast. Join me and NewsX of India for a brief discussion about the latest from Iran.
Borzu, thank you so much for joining us today on the show. Could these hits to the energy infrastructure in Iran have a opposite intended effect? Israel and the United States have threatened that hits to Iranian energy infrastructure could be a potential consequence if this conflict does keep ramping up.
There is some evidence that the attacks on civilian infrastructure are already to some extent rallying the people around the regime a little bit at least. I'm actually not in Istanbul. I'm actually on the Iran-Turkey border, and we've spent the last couple of days interviewing people coming from Iran, and that is one of the things that people are saying. It seems like they are saying that a lot of the targets are not really targets having to do with the Revolutionary Guard, which many people despise. They're not having to do with the regime, which many people oppose, but also seem to be targeting the civilian infrastructure. One person talked about a sports facility that was hit by the Israeli airstrikes. Many people referred to the hit on the school in southern Iran, the Minab school, in which more than 160 school children and teachers were killed on the first day of the attacks. So yes, naturally you could foresee how hitting things that are precious to ordinary people would rally them around the regime, even if they don't necessarily like the regime for now.
In a recent Truth Social post, US President Donald Trump has proclaimed that Iran is now dead. Adding on to it, the US president further stated that only the greatest enemy left for America to tackle is the radical left and the highly incompetent Democratic Party. Your thoughts here on Trump's statement there that Iran is dead?
Well, I thought it was unhinged and juvenile. That's just not how you talk about war, matters of war, especially when people's lives are at stake. Iran is dead. It sounds like something a street hoodlum would say about another street hoodlum on the streets of Queens, where he grew up. And it shows just his lack of diplomatic experience. And it's also kind of unrealistic, the talk about that. What he means by that, Iran is dead, is like, well, they didn't respond to my entreaties, and they didn't respond to my 6-point offer that we sent through diplomatic channels to give up. So now they're really going to taste it. Okay, what are they going to do? They're going to hit the electrical sites and power supply sites across Iran, and Iran is just going to respond. They are going to respond by striking energy facilities in Israel and the Gulf. This will hurt everybody. This will hurt Israelis. This will hurt Americans. The only people it will benefit are the oil companies and perhaps other energy companies that happen to be his donors. So perhaps from his bubble, this war is cost-free, but from the point of view of ordinary people, whether they're in India or Iran or the United States or Israel, this is a very costly war.
You've said that you're on the Iran-Turkey border. How are we seeing this conflict play out beyond the immediate theatre of war? Of course, there's been some reluctance by the US and Israeli allies to join this conflict. But what's your take on the current temperature at the moment?
This was a conflict that Israel and the United States went into so boastfully and so enthusiastically and with so much confidence. And now they're sitting there begging the European leaders who they ignored and dismissed and insulted for months and months and months to come to their aid. Wait, I thought that Iran's missile capacity was degraded by 90%, or was it 200%, or was it 800%? So why are they still firing missiles? It seems like they were sold a bill of goods, sold a bunch of lies by their own analysts and own military officers. They've been peddling these lies to the world community for weeks now. Why would they need any help? This is the strongest military in the history of the world, and the strongest military in the Middle East, perhaps in all of Southwest Asia. And now they are begging the Europeans for help. It just doesn't make any sense unless they realize they're in over their heads, and that the Iranian threat and the Iranian capabilities are way more than they had accounted for. So I think that's what's most telling about the Netanyahu's demand for help and his use of, for example, UK media outlets who are all basically sounding very alarmist headlines today, demanding that the UK government get involved in this. All of these controlled by influence peddlers in London. It just is kind of telling that the machinery of war and propaganda is in high gear because they're in trouble.